Hello, good evening, everyone. We'll get started. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Let's get started. Any questions before we begin the next session? We're going to next topic today, which is called as functions. Okay. So if there are no questions, we will continue working. No, we'll continue with new topic, functions. Okay. So, I hope that you don't have any questions. Now, the thing is, you can, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat in the YouTube link, right? In the YouTube chat, you can put your comments, or you can even put your comments in that blog, okay, where we are updating all the notes, right? You can even put your questions there. Okay. So no, you can put your questions in the website as well if you want to reach out to me. Okay, and I'll try to answer those queries. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. What is a function, right? So what is a function? Function is a collection of, okay, some statements, right? So it's a collection, or it's a name that we give to a group of lines of code, right? So let's say if I put, okay, if I put print hello, and I say print how are you, I can if I run it, okay, you get hello, how are you, right? But now let's say, okay, I want to call it multiple times. Okay, so if you have to type this again and again and again and again, it's a waste of lines of code, right? So what we do is we give these lines of code, okay, a name. Okay, So I can say print, where are you now? Okay, so I can give a name to these lines of code. Def, say greetings. Okay, so def, the function name followed by bracket open and close, and then colon. Def, function name, bracket open and close, and colon. Okay, so this is how you define a function, and I'm going to write these 3 lines of code here. Okay, so what happened? These 3 lines of code, I have put it in what we call as function definition. Okay, so def is a keyword which is kind of representing that I want to define a function. So def followed by keyword or the function name. Okay, so greetings is your function name. Okay, followed by simple open and close bracket. This is also important. Okay, simple open and close bracket is also important, followed by quotes, colon. So this is how you define. So I'm going to call this as function definition, right? And I have 3 statements which has been added within these function greetings. Okay. So now when I call this greetings, okay, when I call this greeting and when I run it, okay, it is hello, how are you, where are you now? Okay, hello, how are you, where are you now, right? So I have called these lines of sorry. Okay, so this is called this is called calling the function. Okay, now the functions are not called automatically. If I run this line of code or this file, you don't get any output. So functions are not called automatically. Functions are not called automatically. Functions are, okay, are called when you will call them, right? So we have to specifically call the function, and whenever you want to call, you can call it, right? So I can say here print calling the function now, and I call this function, correct? So when I call this, the first line to get executed, is line number 12. Okay, this will not get called because this is function definition. So function definition will not get called. This is your first line of execution. So you're calling print, okay, the line number 12, number 1. Then it goes to line number 13. 13 is calling 7. So 13 goes to 7. Then you have 8, 9, 10. And after 10, again it comes to 13. Okay. So 12, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, 12, 13. Okay. 13 is going to call the function. So the 12, 13, 13 will call 7, 8, 9, 10, and then comes back to 13. So 13 is not complete. 13, execution of line number 13. Okay. Execution of above function. Execution of above function is not complete till greetings is done. Okay. So till greetings is done, this is not completed. Okay. So line number 12, 13, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 13 again. I can have another print statement here. Calling the function again. Okay. Now I'm going to call this greetings again. So this is what I meant when I said the function, okay, can be called again and again, and it saves the code, right? So you can see it's like write it once and use it multiple times. Okay, so I don't have to write these 3 lines again and again. I want it here, so I'll call the name. So in a crude way, function is nothing but a name that we give to a lines of code. Simple. Okay, just a name that we give to few lines of code. Okay, and that those lines of code will be executed when we call them. Specifically, we have to call them. Automatically, those are not called. Okay, and then of course there are different types. Okay, so function is not a small topic. You know, we will be doing for next couple of days. Okay, so okay, so this is a simple this is a simple function. Okay, now let's say I use a function to perform some action. Okay, so I'll write a function def addition. Okay, and I'm going to say n1 equal to int of input, enter first number, right? And then again I go and I say n2 enter second number, right? n1 equal to enter first number, n2 equal to enter second number. And I can say sum equal to n1 plus n2. And here I can say sum of given two numbers is sum. Sum of given two numbers is sum. So now when you run it, okay, this is not called because we have to specifically call this function, isn't it? So I'm going to say addition. Okay, I'm calling this function. So this function, okay, is called, and now you see here, enter first number. Okay, so I enter, let's say, 55. Okay, then says enter second number. I say 65. Okay, sum of given two numbers is 120. Okay, so this function is kind of independent. It does not ask anything, does not take anything, does not give anything. Okay, so this performs end-to-end operation by itself. It performs end-to-end operation by itself, isn't it? So we call such function, okay, as function. This is an example of function that doesn't take any input parameter and doesn't return any value. Okay, so this is an example of function that doesn't take any input parameter and doesn't return any value. First type. Okay, type 1. Type 1 of function. Okay, doesn't take anything, doesn't return anything. Okay, now you can have 4 types of functions based on this, which takes input parameter, does not return, which does not take and returns, which takes and also returns, both options. Okay, so I'm going to quickly show you examples of all the 4 types. Okay, so let me call this as addition 1. Okay, or addition type 1. Okay, addition type 1 is where no input parameter, no output, no return value. Okay, similarly, okay, let me copy this and we'll modify the same thing below. I'm going to say addition type 2, and this sum I don't want to print it here. I want to give it to the main program. I want to give it to the program which called me. Okay. So I'm going to say return sum. Return sum. And here when you call it, you say, okay, you can say print, okay, something like this. You can either print it directly or you can say result equal to addition type 2, okay, and print type 2 function that returns value as, and you say result. Okay, so when I run this function, okay, so this is the first function that will be called, isn't it? Enter first number. So I say 4, 5. So you get sum of two numbers is 9. This is the first type 1 function. Now I'll call that type 2 function. So type 2 function is like, you know, I say 23 and I say 33. So see 56. Okay, 56, okay, is coming from this print. Print will print the output here. Now again, second time again, I'm calling it, right? So let's add the values again, 61 and 21. So see, type 2 function that returns value as 82. Okay, so these are two types of function declaration, the way you declare and you use. Type 1 is where you don't pass any input parameter and you don't return any input. Sorry, you don't return any output, right? You don't take any input, you don't give any output. Second type is where it does not take any input, but it is returning us an output. It is returning us output. So what I'll do is I'll just save it in the next file. Okay, and I'll continue to be, okay, so this is what we call it as type 2, isn't it? So this is example of type 2 function where we don't provide any input, but the function returns us output, right? Okay. Now, third type will take example where it, okay, it returns, okay, let me copy it and put it. Okay, so I'm going to call it an addition type 3, okay, where it doesn't take any value. So we need to provide value. So I'm going to say, you know, n1, n2. Okay, so I'm providing input value. Okay, this is your input parameters. We are providing input parameters. Okay, we are providing input parameters. Okay, sum equal to this, and this is return, right? Return values. So now you see here, this is very similar, I just said, right? So I'm going to say addition type 3, right? And you have type 3 function that returns, that takes input and also returns value. Okay, that also returns value. So now, okay, now see here, if I run this code, it will give me error. Why? It says addition type 3 missing 2 required positional arguments, n1 and n2. Okay, the function here, addition type 3, takes two input values, n1 and n2. Okay, it takes two input values, n1 and n2, and so it is expecting us So when we call it, it's like this function, okay, will only work when you provide two, sweets packet. So when you call this, it is expecting two sweet packet, N1 and N2, right? I mean, two numbers in this case. So when I call this type, okay, I have to pass two numbers. I can directly pass 56, 21, or what I can do is I can say, okay, I can say A equal to int of input, enter first number, okay, and B equal to input second number, right? And then I'm going to say A comma B here. Okay, A comma B. So when I run this, so see, first 77 is printed. Why? Because I'm passing 56 and 21. So N becomes 56. Okay, the matching is done left to right. Okay, matching is done left to right. So what I can do is let me stop this, and before I add, let me print the value of N1 and N2. Print values of N1 and N2 are, okay, N1 comma N2. Okay. Now when you run it, values of N1 and N2 are 56, 21, right? Because we are passing 56. So N1 takes 56. We are passing 21. So N2 takes 21. So values of N1 and N2 are 56 and 21. Okay, this is what you get. N1 and N2 are 56, 21. Okay. And okay, so it is returning sum. So here when I'm printing it, the output is printed as it is. That is 56 plus 21, 77 is printed. Now this is called again, isn't it? So when I'm calling this again here, before I call this function, I'm inputting the value. I want the input from the user. Okay, I want the input from the user. So I'm saying enter first number as, let's say, 21 and second number as 11. Now when you call, okay, values of N1 and N2 are 21 and 11. Now see this? Okay, so I'm passing A. So A goes to N1. B goes to N2. A goes to N1, B goes to N2. So type 3 function that takes input and also returns value, and the result is 32. 21 plus 11, 32. So this is an example of third type which takes input and returns output. Okay. I'm going to again save this in different file. And now I'm going to talk about the fourth type of function, okay, which takes input but does not return, right? So does not return. So I'm going to delete it. Okay. And we'll print the sum here itself. Okay. So now when I try to run it, let's see what happens. Okay, I'm passing 56 and 21. So 56, 21 values of, okay, I'll call it type 4. Okay, to avoid confusion, let me call this type 4. Okay, so addition type 4, 56, 21, it goes here. Values of N1 and N2 are 56 and 21, correct? Now sum equal to N1 plus N2, and sum of the given two numbers is sum. Okay, sum of given two numbers is 77 is being printed from function, addition type 4. Okay, but when I try to print this, the print whole function is executed, right? Function will be executed normally, but it is not returning anything. So what we get as output here, okay, none. Okay, since it is not returning anything, it is taken as none. N capital O-N-E, none. Okay. Okay. Now, What happens when I pass the value here? Let's say I say 11 and I say 21. Okay, so same thing here. Okay, addition is called, so sum of given two numbers is 32, right? 11 plus 21, and result is none. So type 3 function that takes input also returns value none. It does not return any value. So we have seen 4 types of functions, isn't it? Okay, based on value it takes and return value that it gives. Okay, so based on values it takes, it can take or not take. Okay, returns, it can return or not return. Make sense? Okay. So what we do is we actually use, okay, either we pass the value here, okay, or we pass or don't pass, or we get the return or don't get the return, right? So typically if you see, though I have said 4 types, it is mainly 2 types only, right? Input you provide or don't provide, return it gives or don't give, correct? Okay, so the functions that we're talking about, okay, will be classified, okay, either you provide the input or don't provide the input. Now we can return, okay, multiple values. Okay, it need not return one value. For example, if I create my own function, def calculation, okay, and let's say we don't provide any value, we put n1 comma n2 equal to 40 comma 30, right? And now I say add equal to n1 plus n2, subtract equal to n1 minus n2, multiply equal to n1 into n2, division equal to n1 divided by n2. Right? I can say return, add, subtract, mul, and div. Okay. So here I'm calculating 4 different variables, and I am returning each of the 4 values using return. So when you're returning 4 values, you have to catch the 4 values. Okay, when you're returning 4 values, you also need to catch 4 values when you call that function. So when I call this function, I'm going to say here result 1, comma, result 2, comma, result 3, comma, result 4 equal to calculation. Okay, that's it. Now I can print sum of 2 numbers is result 1, right? See, once you get the result in the main program, it is up to you how you want to use it. Okay, if you want, you can pass it to another function. So I will write another function here called def display. Okay, now in display, I will display these 4 values. Okay, I will say R1, comma, R2, comma, R3, comma, R4. Okay, and I'm going to sum of 2 numbers is R1. Difference of 2 numbers is R2. Okay, multiplication. Multiplication of 2 numbers is R3. Ratio of 2 numbers is R4. Correct? So here I'm calling calculation function. Okay, and calculation function doesn't take any parameter and returns 4 values. Now I have to call display. Now display doesn't return anything. Display doesn't return anything, correct? But it takes 4 values. So I will pass these 4 values. wait. So I'll pass these 4 values to display. When I pass these 4 values to display, R1 takes result 1, R2 takes result 2, R3 takes result 3, and so on. Okay, now when I run it, see, you get the answer. Okay, so first calculation is called. Okay, it returns 4 values, and those 4 values are passed to display, and the answer is displayed here. Okay, we can write. Okay, we can write input function, okay, processing function, and output function. Okay, so here when we are saying n1 equal to n1, n2 equal to 40, 30, we can write another function. We can write another function. Okay, and let me say this: def input. Okay, so input, I'm saying n1, okay, equal to 20, 30. Now I'm going to return n1, n2, isn't it? Return comma n1, n2, and in calculation, I will pass n1 comma n2. So when you call, now I have to call input, isn't it? Because input is not called. Okay, so if input is not called, we won't get n1, n2, right? Or we have to manually pass value here. Okay, because calculation takes 2 numbers. So what I'll do here, I'm going to say a comma b equal to input. Okay, now you see, input is also an inbuilt function, and input is also user defined function. So functions that we write, okay, functions that we declare are called user defined functions, and they are inbuilt functions, functions that come pre-installed, right? We did not have to define print. We did not have to define input. For example, int. These are all predefined. They are called as inbuilt functions. They're called as inbuilt functions. Now when I run, what happens? Let's see. Okay, so calculation needs 2 values, isn't it? So I need to provide A and B here. Okay. What happened? Did you see any notice? Did you notice any difference, any problem? So we have an input value, right? Input value takes input, say inbuilt function, but always user defined functions takes priority over inbuilt function. Okay, so though here is name clash, okay, though here is name clash, okay, what is name clash? Name clash is I'm going to use input variable, okay, or inbuilt function. Okay, I'm going to use input or inbuilt function, declared user defined function with same name as inbuilt. So which will have preference? UDF will have preference. Okay, so see, inbuilt is not defined in this file. Inbuilt functions are defined in different files, right? Like inbuilt input is defined in different file. So when we call this input, here, okay, when we call this input here, first place that it will look for is current file. Okay, so current file they found input, so they are not going to look for inbuilt function. Okay, but it is a bad idea. This will do what we want to do, but this is not a good practice. Okay, other developers will get confused. Correct? So though it will work, it does what we want to do, but other developers will get confused. So we can change it like something like this, input val. Okay. And I'll go and I'll say input val. Now there is no clash. Now there is no clash. Okay. So now you will not see this. No clash now. I can remove it, isn't it? So there is no clash, we can remove it. So this is how we can create, functions which are independent of each other, but you can use them to call each other. Okay, everyone, all good so far? Any question, please type in the chat. And if you're watching the recorded lecture, you can, send your questions in the website. Okay, and I'll try to answer there. Okay. So this is how we define and use functions. Okay, this is not the end. Okay, we have just seen the different types of return. Based on the input parameters, there are 4 types. What we saw, just one type of input parameters. There are 3 other examples. Okay, and we'll do slowly, step by step. Before we get into input parameters, I want to show you what is called as global global variable and local variable. Okay, what is global variable and what is local variable? So for time being, okay, let's put our discussion to local versus global variable. Now, if you take let's define a function. Display, okay, display info, I'm calling it. Fine. And I'm saying print, okay, I'll say x equal to 50, and I'll say print x is x. Okay. So let's say I call it as display info 1, and I define here x equal to 50. When I define x equal to 50, this is called global variable. Okay, global, it is global for all the functions. Okay, so if you talk about display function or display info as a function, display info, these are the text which is inside the function. These are the text which are inside the function, isn't it? So these 2 statements are local to display info. So these lines of code are local to display. And what is outside, this is global to display info, right? So when you have x equal to 50 in global, and you say x equal to 50 in local, okay, so I'll say local to display info 1. This is very specific to display info. So now when I run it, okay, when I run this, okay, so x is 50 display info, but I need to call display info, right, to execute. So I'm going to say display info 1. And now when you run it, so it gave x equal to 50, but yeah, let's put it something different so that we know it is different. See, x is 20. So though we have a global variable 50 and local as 20, local always takes precedence over global. Local will always take precedence over global. Now let's say I define another function. I call it as display info 2. Okay, and I don't define any value here. Okay, now let me call display info 2 and see what happens. I call display info 2 and see what happens. You see, 50 is called. So when there is no local, global is called. Right? You see that? Okay. Hope there are no questions here. Awesome. Okay. Now let's say I define one more display function. So I say display info 3 and I say X is. Now when I call X is, of course I will get the value, isn't it? It will display 50. It will display 50, isn't it? But display info will also display 50, correct? Now what happens? After displaying X, I call X equal to 30 and print. Okay, and I'll copy this, X is X. Then what happens? You get error. It says, X is referenced before assignment. Local variable X is referenced before assignment. Since I'm declaring X here, so it has a local X. Okay. When you have something with you, then you will not take public property. When you don't have public, your own, then you look for public property, isn't it? Global is like public property. And you have X, you have defined X. Okay. So there is no connection with global now. Okay, you have declared local X, there is no connection with the global now. So this is throw error as you are calling before declaring, isn't it? Okay, but let's say I want to say that I want to call global. I want to specifically mention that I want to call global value. This X is not local. I want to call a global X. So what you do is you go here and say global. Okay. Now when I put global here, okay, of course, it says invalid syntax here. Okay. It says invalid syntax here. Why? Because first we have to declare it. And how do we declare it? We have to say global X here. You can't use it without declaring, isn't it? So first you declare it saying that I want to use global X. So now till you have your local X, global X is used. See, error is gone. So till you have your local X, you can use global X. So your global X. Okay, so see, this is global X 50. And now you see your local X 30. So you can use both global and local in a function. Lot of things we have covered. Let's quickly revise. Okay, so today we spoke about functions. Okay, we spoke about functions and we said that function is nothing but the name that we assign to a group of code. So we assign name to a group of code. What's the advantage? Advantage is you don't have to write the entire lines of code when you want to call them. So related lines of code, we don't just group any lines of code. Related, which perform certain action, which are supposed to perform certain actions, you group them together, right? So in this case, hello, how are you, where are you now? These are related for me. I want to call them together. Whenever I want to call them together. Okay, that's the purpose. I want to call them together. So I have put them together and given a name called greetings. Okay, and so this is definition, function definition. Defining doesn't mean that you are calling. It will not be used. If you want to use it, you say calling the function now. So now you call the function greetings and greetings is called here. Okay, so greetings is called. Now we said that function can take parameter and need not take parameter. It can take or need not take. So addition type 1 is the example which does not take parameter. Okay, does not take any parameter. Addition type 2 is the example where function doesn't take any input parameter. So when you define the function here, right, this is the function definition, isn't it? When you define the function here, in the open bracket and close bracket, within this, we have to define the variables that needs to be part of this function. Okay, so if you do not pass anything, that means you are not passing. If you do not write any variable here, that means I'm not passing any variable to this function. I'm not passing any variable to this function. Okay. Now in this example, in addition 3, you see, I'm passing 2 variable here. So this is an example where function is taking input variable. We are giving n1 and n2. The first 2 examples, in fact, when greetings, first 3 examples we saw, the function did not take any input parameter. Function did not take any input parameter. Now we are passing input parameters n1 and n2. Okay, so how do you pass? When you're calling, you have to assign 2 values. You have to give 2 values. Okay, and these are called required positional arguments. Required positional arguments. Required means, okay, there are 2 variables n1 and n2. So you have to give n1 and n2. Okay, the 2 variables input parameters. So we have to give n1 and n2. Okay, so we are giving n1 and n2. And how does it take? It takes left to right order. So 56 will go to n1 and 21 will go to n2. Okay, so this is example of function that takes input parameter. Now again, we have addition type 4. This is also a type where the function is taking 2 input parameter. It takes input parameters. Okay, n1 and n2. So you have 56 and 21. It is taking input parameters. Okay, so second type of functions are functions that does not return anything or return something. So in this case, we don't see return keyword. There is no return keyword. That means this function does not return anything back from function to us. Does not return. Now when I go here, this function also does not return anything back to us. There's no return keyword. So when there's no return keyword and you try to print the function, the function name, when there's no return keyword and you try to print the function name, you get none. You get N-O-N-E, none. If I try to print addition type 1, if I try to print addition type 1, the addition type 1, it will be executed. Okay, it will be executed. But when you try to print the function name, you get N-O-N-E, none. Okay, because it's not returning. If it is not returning and you try to print, you get N-O-N-E. Okay. Similarly, type 2, okay, type 2, this returns value. So when I try to print, okay, it will execute the function and also print the return value. So you can directly print it here, or you can take it and use it later. I'm printing it later. You can save it. Okay, it's like this. Okay, you want a Xerox copy of your say mass card. You go to the Xerox shop and you give your Xerox copy and take the copy. The copy is with you now. Right? Copy is with you now. Now you can do whatever, right? You do not have to submit it there itself. You can submit it later anywhere. Make sense? Okay. So these are 2 types of functions which takes parameter, does not take parameter, returns, or does not return. Okay. So this is just the introduction. Okay. Tomorrow we'll see different types of course, okay, functions. So now, okay, we will practice some examples. Okay, we'll practice some examples before we end the meeting. Okay, for next 15 minutes, let's do some examples. Okay, so let's talk about, okay, Fibonacci series number. Okay, let's start with something simple. Okay, I'm going to pass. Okay, write a program to input value and check if the number is odd or even. Okay, simple one. Okay, we'll slowly increase our complexity. So I'm going to define a function def check num, check odd even, something like this. Check odd even. So it will take n and we will return either true or false. So if n %2 equal to 0, okay, or let's do one thing. Instead of saying check odd or even, we will say check odd. Yeah, only checking odd. So what does that mean is, okay, I'm going to talk about this. This is called doc string, what I'm typing now. Okay, I'm going to say this function takes a number and checks if the number is odd. Okay, it returns true if the number is odd, otherwise false. Okay, now if n1 equal to modulo 2 and I'll say not equal to 0, okay, return true, else return false. Okay, check odd if, okay, if it is not, okay, n divided by 2 and the remainder is not 0, it is true. Check odd will be true, right? And when I can run this, of course nothing will happen. Now when I call this, I'll call an infinite loop. So I'm going to say print enter the series of numbers to check if odd or even. Okay, enter non-number to end. Enter non-number to end. Okay, so I'm going to say while true, okay, and here I'm going to read a value here. Okay, so what I'll do is, because we can enter non-number to end, right? So non-number, if I try to convert into integer, it will throw error. So I will say, okay, input value equal to input enter a number. Correct? Now I'm going to check if input dot is digit. Okay, if it is digit, that means clearly, you know, it's a number and you want to check if it is odd or not. So I'm going to convert input into int of input, right? Only if it is integer can convert, isn't it? Int of input, and I will call this function check equal to check odd, and I'm passing input. Okay, and if check, then you say print it's a true means what? Odd number, right? It's an odd number. Okay, else you can say print it's an even number or not a odd number, whatever, right? You can change your logic. Done. And if it is not a number, simply you break, you end your program. Right? So I've written a function here which takes the value and checks and returns true or false. First, let's execute it. So, okay, it says enter the series of numbers to check if number is odd or even, enter non-number to end. So I say 5, it's an odd number. 7, odd number. 4, even number, 0, even number, minus 10. Okay. So what happened? Minus sign is not a digit, isn't it? Minus sign is not a digit. The moment we enter minus, okay, it goes to break. Okay. And this is how you, and otherwise you can keep on continue performing. Negative numbers, we assume that it's not neither a integer or a number. What I'm saying, minus number is neither an odd number nor a even number. Okay, let's assume that negative numbers are neither odd or even. So you stop. So this is an example of creating a function odd and checking if it is odd or not. Okay, and it is returning true if it is odd. Okay, and false if it is not odd. That means if it is even. Okay, so one thing which I want to show you here is I have put 3 quotations here. I put 3 quotation here, isn't it? What does this mean? So always, okay, it's called documentation string, doc string. Okay, so document, okay, doc string is always the first line after function declaration, or not just the first line, first triple quote line. Okay, and this adds to the documentation of the function. Okay, so if I put this in line number, after a for somewhere, then this is not called documentation string. Your documentation string has to be first condition, triple quote. Your documentation string has to be triple quote, first thing. Second thing is it has to be the first line after your function declaration. So it should be immediately after colon. It should be immediately after colon. It should be immediately after colon. What's the use of this? Okay. So use of this is, let's say if I don't know what this function is, let's say I see a function checkout. Sorry, just give me a second. Okay, so let's say I have a function called check odd, and I don't know what is this all about, right? So I will call help function. Help is an inbuilt function. Help, and I pass check odd. Okay, so see what happens. When you pass help, it gives you the documentation string that we have added there. Okay, so it will pick the triple quote documentation, which is the first line after colon. Whatever you write, that is displayed. So, in future, if you want some user to know what your function is all about, because we have so many functions, right? Thousands of functions. I want to know before using what that function do. So that's when I will call help check odd. So if I say help check odd, I see here I'm not giving bracket open and close because it is assumed that you are talking about function. Help is an inbuilt function. Help check odd will tell you what this function do. Okay, see exactly this is what we had written, isn't it? This function takes a number and checks if the number is odd, returns true if the number is odd, otherwise false. Exactly the same text that we wrote. You can see the help of any inbuilt function too. I want to see the input function help. Okay, so let me, okay, of course I have to go through that, right? So see, so this is check odd here. This is built, this is your input module built in. So input prompt none, read a string from standard input, the trailing new line is stripped. The prompt string, if given, is printed to standard output without a trailing new line before reading input. If the user hits end of file, okay, like Control Z in Windows raises EOF error. Okay, and towards the end, we'll talk about different types of errors during our last 2-3 classes. We'll talk about what is this error. Okay, for now, just ignore that part. So it's always a good practice to call help, okay, and see what it does before you start using it. Okay, I can say print, help print. Okay, so you will see, okay, I need to pass something, right? So this is the print help on print. Okay, so this is how we can create, okay, documentation string, doc string they call it, okay, doc str, documentation string, and you can see that using print function. Make sense, everyone? So yes, this is what I had planned. Let's do one more example before we end, okay? Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let me move it to our file for save. I'll update in that website, okay, after maybe 15 minutes. Information with this, all code will be there. So you can go and check the code there, okay? Now, let's write a function, okay? You can do help on help also, okay? Okay, let's write a function which will generate Fibonacci number. So Fibonacci number is number which is addition of previous to number, right? So the function, okay, so we'll write a function which will give us the next number, the series. So function, so def generate Fibonacci, and I'm passing n1 and n2, and it will return simply return n1 plus n2. So you are passing n1 and n2, previous two values you are passing, and it is giving us the next input. So in the main function, what I'll do, I will say n1 equal to 0 and n2 equal to 1. So Fibonacci number would be what? Okay, Fibonacci will be print generate Fibonacci n1 comma n2, isn't it? Now when I run it, so let me move this. Okay, this is displaying all the text, right? Let me move it to our notes. Okay, so I'm saying write a function to generate next Fibonacci number, right? So this is going to generate this, right? Now after this, what happens? I can put this in a loop, right? I can say while true, okay, while true, n1 equal to 0, n2 equal to 1. Okay, now this has to be before entering the loop. These are the initial values, isn't it? Okay, these are initial values, and I'm going to say generate Fibonacci n1, n2. Okay, now before printing, what I'll do, I'll save this output. Okay, so result equal to generate Fibonacci n1, n2. So Fibonacci number is your okay, print. Okay, so thing is, first two number is 1, 1, isn't it? So I'm going to say here print Fibonacci numbers are, okay, I'll print 1 because 1 is anyway first number, right? Now I'm saying print, okay, print okay, the result, right? Result in next Fibonacci number, and I'm going to say, okay, here itself I'll check. Okay, so I'll say here end equal to blank or something like this. Okay, and I'm going to say ch, okay, equal to int of input. Enter any key to continue. Okay, if it is any key, I don't have to convert into int part, right? So any key. Okay. Okay. So enter. Okay, or any key to continue, or enter to stop. Okay. So the next part would be you are converting this n1. N1 is the first number, right? 0 and 1. So now n1 will become n2 and n2 will become result, isn't it? Okay, so you got 0 plus 1. Now n1, 0 is left. We have to leave it, right? Now n1 becomes 1 and n2 becomes n plus, n1 plus n2, which is the old one, result. You can directly put it something like this. n1 comma n2 equal to, okay, n2 comma result. So n1 will take n2 value, n2 will take result value. Okay. And after reading this, okay, we'll say print here. Okay, let's run this and see what happens. So Fibonacci numbers are 1 and then 1, isn't it? So first number, second number is done. Okay, any key to continue or enter to stop. Okay, I have not done that condition here, isn't it? So what I'll do is, okay, if, or let's do something easy. Enter, hit enter to continue, hit enter to continue, any other key to stop, let's say. That way it will make more sense. So if len of ch, len of ch is 0, that means we want to continue. If len of ch equal to 0, then do nothing. If it is not 0, then you break. Interesting, isn't it? Now let's run it and see. Fibonacci numbers are 1, 1, hit enter to continue, another key to stop. So hit enter. So you get 2, right? 1 plus 1 is 2. Hit enter. Okay. 2 plus 1 is 3. It's giving blank space, right? So this is not required. And if I enter any other value, r and it stops because length is no longer 0 now, isn't it? So now 1, 1, hit enter. Okay, keep on hitting enter, you get next values. Okay, see quickly 22,000. 610 plus 987 is 1597, isn't it? So that's a Fibonacci number. And whenever you enter some value, okay, T or whatever, it stopped. Okay, so this is an example of creating Fibonacci series number. Any question before we end? This is, this is an example where you can use functions to do simple work. Okay. Shall we stop here? Okay, great. Let's stop here. Okay. And okay, this has to be moved to the main. Sorry. Okay, so let's stop here, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. And we will see you tomorrow. We will not meet on Wednesday. Wednesday we'll take off. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Take care. And I'm going to upload this so you can have access to the code in maybe next 15 minutes. Okay. Take care. Have a good evening, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye.